أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صدق الله العظيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for keeping this beautiful tradition alive, and I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me, and Alhamdulillah I was able to respond this time to the invitation. I'm glad I'm here, and this evening I'm going to introduce new model human being, institution, organism. We often hear about institutions, and we think that institution is the highest level of the organization, the highest level of living, working, but it's not. So I am proposing the next level. Even this may not be the last, the final, the highest organism. And I look at the organism as being a result of spiritual dimension of Islam through Sufism. And let me give you a short introduction to Sufism. Tasawwuf, in the Islamic tradition, it is the inner spiritual side of faith. And it is the part of Islam, of course, that focuses on the heart, sincerity, self-discipline, good character, and closeness to Allah. So it supports the Sharia, and it gives life and meaning from the inside. Every religious community usually goes through 3 levels. They may not know this, but as it grows and becomes stable, first the human being, model of human being, the person who experiences faith and lives it, the institution, the organized structures that protect and teach religion, and organism. The organism, a community that becomes truly alive, connected, and able to grow. In this way, we can see the Muslim community as an organism when it has inner spiritual life flowing through it. So let's take this number 1 part of this model, the human being. Of course, religious life begins with the individual. Without human beings, there is no community, no religion lived in real life. In Islam, the human being is an abd, a servant of Allah, who tries to live that relationship through worship, good character, self-control, and good deeds. Early Sufi teachers such as Junaid of Baghdad emphasized Religion is not only about doing things correctly on the outside, it is also about changing on the inside, becoming a better and purer person. At this level, the level of human being, Sufism offers three important elements: self-reflection, muhasaba, a real sense of closeness to Allah, qurb, and moral beauty and spiritual excellence, ihsan. The well-known hadith of Jibreel defines ihsan as to worship Allah as though you see Him. It means living with deep awareness of Allah. This is how Sufism or Tasawwuf helps move faith from just knowledge in the mind to something lived deeply in real life. Second part of this model, institution, a form of transmission and continuity. A religious community cannot remain only at the level of individual experience. This is how we get institutions, organized systems that teach, protect, and transmit the religion. Institutions provide a shared and stable way of teaching religion, continuity of learning, recognized scholars and leaders, organized community action. And all of this rotate around the education schools. However, institutions have a natural weakness, or may have natural weakness. They are built for stability, not always for growth and transformation of the human being. Their purpose is to continue and preserve, and over time they can become fixed and routine. They may successfully pass down Iman, Islam, and religious practice, but their form can become enough by itself, and religion can turn into habit without spirit. A historical example can be found in some parts of the Ottoman religious system. It provided stability and order, but at times it became too bureaucratic and legalistic, with less spiritual warmth. And now, part number three of this model, organism, which I consider to be a higher stage than the institution. It means the community is not only a set of offices and committees, but a living body, a living organism. Living organism is adaptable. It responds wisely to new times and new challenges. A living organism has the quality of inner circulation of spiritual energy. Spiritual strength is not only personal, it spreads through the community. And it has the quality of being organic unity. The community functions as one connected whole. So this is where the Sufism becomes essential. Historically, Tasawwuf has helped ensure that institutions do not become soulless structures. Instead, they remain places that shape hearts and build strong human beings. Without spirituality, a community is at risk of becoming outward practice without inner experience. Sharia without ihsan, and knowledge without heart and character. Across Islamic history, Sufism often played the role of inner circulation through tekas, zawiyas, study circles, and adab culture. It helped create shared spiritual life, moral discipline, and strong communal identity, which I, by the way, see in this community. During this retreat, you can sense the communal identity functioning as an organism rather than institution. When people come together, spend time together, pray together, learn together, worship together, eat together. That's organism. This is how we train ourselves to be organism rather than institution, to be above institution, to be extension of institution. I'm from Bosnia, and Sufism in Bosnia was not only an Ottoman cultural influence or Ottoman decoration or luxury or some cult or something of that nature. No, it helped shape everyday Muslim life. Islam came to Bosnia, to the Balkans, not only Bosnia, to Macedonia, to Montenegro, to Albania, to Serbia, with Sufi masters, Sufi sheikhs, with their teachings. They were the first one to come to Bosnia to find out about the people, whether the people would accept what is going to be offered as Islam. And they prepared the people of the Balkans to accept Islam in a good way, nice way, flexible way. Tekas or zawiyas were not simply separate institutions competing with others. They often served as centers of spiritual energy that set the spiritual tone for religious life, connected scholars with ordinary people, enriched religious culture, nasheeds, ilahis, qasidas, zikr, manuscript traditions, produced educated, humble, morally strong individuals In this way, scholars gained warmth and connection, and ordinary people gained guidance and direction. So the model of human institution organism describes the development of many religious communities. Sufism is one of the strongest forces that can lift a religious institution into a living organism. The Muslim community can exist only to continue, but a spiritually alive Muslim community exists to transform. It transforms people, and it transforms society. Sufism supports that transformation from the inside outward, from the heart to structure, from the person to the community. In other words, tasawwuf is like spiritual blood, circulating through the community structures, giving them life and keeping them connected. So the institution, again, is not the final stage. An organism means the institution has inner life, it grows, it renews itself, it senses what people need and responds. An organism means inner energy and movement, producing people and leaders, not just filling roles, building culture, not only procedures, the ability to renew itself, not only maintain itself, preserving meaning, not only property, having vision, not only routine. The institution is a body with a shape, and the organism is a body with a soul. For example, the best school is not only the one with classrooms, but the one that produces generations who later teach others, a culture that lives in people and stays with them. And the best congregation, the best jama'at, is not only the one which is registered with the state of, let's say, in Illinois, but it produces active members, new initiatives, and shared care. When an institution becomes an organism, it doesn't die when generations change. It continues in new forms with the same values and energy. This is how continuity becomes growth, not repetition, and how heritage becomes a source, not an archive. It is how what begins in one human being doesn't end in an institution, but becomes alive as an organism. We can analyze the Muslim community in America to find out where the American Muslim community stands, on what level. It's a very specific community. Muslim in America grew through migration, conversion, and many different backgrounds. But this has created strengths, but also imbalance. You can, living here, as Muslims, you can notice what I'm talking about, that Muslims are not connected, they're disconnected. They don't have unity. They are strong at the level of individuals. Individually, we have very strong individuals, but also institutions. There are some institutions that might be strong, might be considered strong, but weaker. We are weaker at the level of a unified organism. We don't function as an organism. Many American Muslims have a conscious relationship with Islam. It's okay. In a non-Muslim majority society, Islam is chosen by American Muslims, practiced with intention and defended. All of that is fine. But without shared history and shared spiritual culture, religious life can remain private and isolated. People may practice, but without feeling part of a wider spiritual community. Institutions of the American Muslim community provided many things: schools, mosques, even funeral services, social support and advocacy like CARE and other organizations. But these institutions often function next to each other instead of as one connected body. Many are divided by ethnicity, driven by donors and budgets more than shared spiritual vision, focused on administration more than spiritual formation. So without a unifying moral and spiritual authority, institution can compete for resources and influence. And may continue to depend more on bylaws and shared spiritual purpose. Depend on protocols than shared spiritual purpose. They become dry, formal, too rigid. So institutions exist, but they do not always function together as one living system. An organism would mean in this society, American society, Muslim community, a shared moral and spiritual story. We are far away from this. Circulation of leadership, values, and trust. A collective ability to respond to challenges with wisdom. Unity without forcing everyone to be the same. In the American Muslim context, we often see no widely recognized moral, spiritual center that can unify communities beyond ethnicity and organization. How do Muslims, American Muslims, look at the tasawwuf? Tasawwuf often remains private. I'm speaking from the experience of being here for the last over 30 years. Sufis are misunderstood. Sufis are pushed to the margins, sometimes seen as ethnic, irrelevant, or separate from mainstream community life. I would say on the almost excommunicated. As a result, American Islam often lacks a shared language of heart training, tazkiyah. Lacks a strong culture of adab that crosses institutions. So you may find that, let's say, ikna is like more acceptable to tasawwuf than isna, because ikna is led by mostly Indo-Pakistani American Muslims who are more familiar with tasawwuf, and the leaders of isna are more Arabs who are not. So American Islam often lacks spiritual leadership that unifies without controlling. American Muslims today live between institution and organism, but often have not crossed fully into organic unity. Institutions support survival, but transformation is harder. That's why we do not see many Americans converting. We don't see many Americans converting. It should be on a higher rate, conversion. In my masjid in Franklin Park, I would say that once a month I have someone to come to accept Islam. Because we are not trained to transform ourselves, so we cannot help other people be transformed. They don't understand, the leaders of the American Muslim institutions don't understand that Sufism doesn't replace institutions or fight them. No. It gives them life from within. It provides spiritual circulation so the community becomes a living body, not a machine. If the Muslim community is an organism, then Sufism works like its spiritual blood. Blood doesn't create the organs. It gives them life. It carries nourishment and signals so every part can work together. When blood reaches every part, the body is healthy. When circulation stops, parts become weak. They may still exist, but they lose function and sensitivity. The same is true in communities. When spiritual meaning doesn't reach certain institutions or leaders, those parts can become dry and unhealthy. They may still exist, but they lose compassion, wisdom, and creativity. A weak part can start draining the whole body. It demands resources and attention, but gives little life back. This is why spiritual circulation must reach everywhere. Sufism cannot stay only private or only in small circles. It must flow through mosques, schools, leadership culture, families, and community life. Only then can the community become a true organism, alive, resilient, connected, and able to heal itself. In this sense, Sufism is not an optional decoration. It is a condition for spiritual vitality. Where it flows, the community lives. Where it is blocked, the community weakens. And where it is absent, spiritual life slowly disappears. Now, I would like to hear from you. Do you agree with me? Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? What do you think about this model? Is it unrealistic or realistic? What can we do? What approach we should use? How we can influence our leaders to consider this model? Where to start? How to start? Yes.
So sir, I am from Bangladesh. So just I want to share my experience. In the name of Sufism, I saw different part of the Indian subcontinent. They are dancing, moving in such a way. I want to know: is it something aligned with Quran and Sunnah? Does this thing done by Sahaba? This is one question. Second question is, some of the scholars saying this Sufism is bidah. What's your opinion about this?
We look at the Sufism as ilm al-ihsan. Another term for Sufism, for tasawwuf, so for self-purification, is ilm al-ihsan, the knowledge of ihsan, excellence. Now, I will have to go back to the hadith of Jibril that I mentioned in the speech. When in Medina, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was with his companions, and young, beautiful human came in white robe. No one knew him. He just appeared in front of the Prophet ﷺ and asked the Prophet 3 questions. This is Sahih Hadith. The first question was, tell me, O Muhammad, about Islam. What is Islam? And the Prophet ﷺ replied and said, Islam is Shahada, to pray 5 times a day, to fast Ramadan, to give zakat, and to perform Hajj. And that was Jibril. That was Jibril, appeared as a human being. And Jibril said, you are correct. Your answer is correct. Now tell me about Iman. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Iman is to believe in Allah, to believe in His angels, to believe in His holy books, to believe in His messengers and prophets, to believe in the Day of Judgment, and to believe that everything happens with the will of Allah. The young man, Jibril, replied, you are right. Your answer is right. Now tell me about Ihsan. Tell me, what is Ihsan? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Ihsan is to believe in Allah as if you see Him, and to know that if you don't see Him, to know that He is seeing you. So from this third part, the discipline of self-purification started to grow. Of course, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, everyone was on the level of ihsan. In the presence of the Prophet ﷺ, everyone was on that level, on the level of ihsan. There was no reason, no need to start new discipline. But by time, very soon, people began to not follow ihsan. They followed Islam and Iman, but without ihsan. So that if we translate that into what I was talking about, they followed what is on the level of human being, they follow what is on the level of institution, what they had to follow, they followed, but they did not, they were not part of the organism. They never became part of the organism. They never achieved excellence. They never achieved ihsan. So that's why we have this new movement of, like you have discipline of teaching how to properly read Quran, tajweed. So that's a discipline. Tajweed was not known at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. How to correctly read Quran, because everyone at that time was reading Quran correctly. The Prophet ﷺ learned from the Jibril how to read correctly Quran according to tajweed. Tajweed gives rules how to correctly and perfectly read Quran. Tajweed. Qira'at is something else. Qira'at is just how to pronounce Quran correctly. Pronounce every sound. But tajweed is how to read Quran correctly. So, aqaid, the knowledge, the discipline of teaching aqaid, aqidah, different beliefs in the system of Islam. There was not only one belief, one unified belief. There were scholars who disagreed how to believe in Allah, who is Allah, what are His properties, and so on. And hadith, also the discipline of analyzing and studying hadith was not present at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So should we say now that hadith scholars are doing bid'ah, or tafsir is bid'ah, or grammar is bid'ah? No. So that's why we have this movement, this new school, which is designed to help people achieve excellence. It's the hardest part. It's easy to teach children Islam when they come to Islamic school, when they come to the weekend school, to the masjid. Imams are experts in teaching children how to teach them about Islam. Islam is shahadat. They teach them how to pray. They teach them how to fast. They teach children what is zakat, and they teach them hajj. Easy. And they learn that with imam. With imam, they also learn about the imam. آمنت بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله واليوم الآخر وبالقدر خيره وشره من الله تعالى. That's it. But how to teach them what is ihsan, how to be human, real, the reflection of the person of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, how to be reflection of his character. Imams cannot do that, because not all imams on that level. That's why we have Sufi sheikhs who achieved that level of excellence, so they can teach others. They can bring others to their levels of excellence. So it's not so the whole problem today and difficulties with how Muslims live and why they are not together, why they are not effective, lies in this void, vacuum of fulfilling excellence in our personalities. Now, we have some Sufis, as you said, some dance. I mean, Quran says, الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم, explaining إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا. Yes. So the Quran describes believers as those who remember Allah qiyaman, standing, wa qu'udan, sitting, wa ala junubihim, and on their backs, lying on the ground. So in every position, however you want to remember Allah, if your intention is good, pure, sincere, go ahead. Glorify Allah. The first generation didn't have time to go to that kind of, although we have some reports that that companions had Sufi, some kind of like Sufi gatherings where they were devoted to zikr in a special, creating special atmosphere and being in a special state and shaking and those kind of things.
I actually first got introduced to Sufism through a group of American Muslim people that they didn't even consider themselves Muslims, but they had like a Sufism that was kind of established like in the 60s and 70s, and they had different groups. And have you encountered these different kinds of American Muslim Sufi people is one question I have, but it's also, I feel like Sufism is a really good kind of segue into introducing Islam to American people, because a lot of people that are American, they might want religion or consider themselves to be spiritual, but they haven't found that that God aspect that they are looking for and longing for. I just wanted to share that too.
Baha'is?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not, is it a question or just your comment?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've encountered American Muslims.
American, just state your question once again.
Have you ever met or encountered American Muslim
Sufi Muslim?
In the
Yes. I came in 1989. In 1990, I met one American Muslim whose mother was of Jewish origin and father of Orthodox origin. His name was Peter Sazanov, and he met one Sufi master in London during Ramadan. That Sufi master from Cyprus would come to London every Ramadan to spend time with his followers. So one American knew about that practice, and he suggested to Peter to go with him. And he came to London, spent some time during Ramadan with Mawlana Sheikh Nazim Al-Qubrasi, Al-Haqqani, and he fell in love with him. And he fell in love with his teachings, with his approach, with his spirituality. And he became Muslim. And people, I have been with him until today. I mean, we are together. I know him very well. So people would ask him, how did you become Muslim? He said, I became Muslim in London when I met Sufi Sheikh I didn't know whether he was Muslim or something else. He impressed me. He impressed me so much with his appearance, with his knowledge, with his approach, with his sincerity, that I accepted whatever he was. Whatever he was, I wanted to be that. So he was Muslim, I became Muslim. So he became Muslim because of that Sufi influence. That's a very powerful Sufi master who can influence, who can touch the heart of other people to accept what they teach. And there are so many American Muslims who accepted Islam through that sheikh, and I connected with them and became part of that tariqah, that order, Naqshbandi order. And they have Zavia, Sufi Lodge, Dervish Lodge in Michigan, Fenton, Michigan. And they function, they have their community, strong community. They function like organism. So when you come, you don't ask who is someone might be from Bangladesh, from Indonesia, even from Czech Republic, from Italy. I mean, they come and we are together, and we are unified by the teaching, by the spirituality, spiritual power. So there are so many, American Muslims who come to see what's going on, and they fall in love and accept Islam. So it's growing, but slowly, because main Muslim organization, main American Muslim institutions don't recognize that, and they say, stay away from them, that's not for you. I agree. The best way for American Muslims to approach them is to approach them with basic Islamic teachings. But there are some who may not be in favor of such approach. They don't see it as attractive. They would rather go and see what is it to be Muslim, to be part of the Muslim community, how I would feel in the Muslim community, in the presence of the Muslim community, how would they treat me, how would I feel? Because we very often we ask, how was it possible for Islam to be spread all over through companions who didn't know languages of other people who they offered Islam to? How was it possible for a companion who knew Arabic and he went to China and he was spreading Islam in China with their spiritual strength, spiritual power, with their sincerity, with their charisma? They were influencing people, forcing people to ask, who are you? What kind of religion are you following? And so on. Yes?
It's a very interesting point. I would like to connect it, as you said, spirituality is very important when it comes to, conquering people's heart. Because I remember yesterday's lecture by Dr. Kaya about the Islamic conquest. It went as far as to Spain, but then it lost its position in the Spain. And the question is why it did it in Spain, while Muslim, missionaries went so far as to Malaysia, but then they maintained the religion there. So what is the reason? And then you will probably find such an answer that it's like spirituality. Umayyad's conquest was mostly by force. And then when it comes to spirituality, it's probably longer lasting.
Yes. Cool.
Yeah, and also I recall to add to April, for me, the Sufism, it represents mostly the love to God, and it's like in the most beautiful way represented by Rumi in his Masnavi, and I see him as a very good example, and as also a way to the hearts of people here in America, because they are familiar with him, and this notion of love to God, is also, very embodied into Christianity as well. So it's a common ground where we can start.
In the schools too, people may have never encountered Islam, but we learned about like Rumi and literature and such, and then when we hear this name, we learn like, oh yeah,
Yes, by the way, in my masjid, 2 nights ago, Saturday night, we had a program celebrating the anniversary of Rumi's death. And it's known in the literature and in tradition as Shebi Arus. Shebi Arus, which means the night of the unity of God, with God, something like that. I mean, it has different meaning, but I don't want to give you details. So it's a Persian phrase, Persian Shebi Arus. He died on December 17, and the tradition of celebrating his death anniversary began in Konya, where he died and where he is buried, and his tomb is there. So that tradition from Konya was passed to Bosnia. See how organism functions. No one forced Bosnian Muslims to celebrate the death of Rumi, because few Bosnians are Mevlevis. Rumi established Sufi order, Mevlevi order. Today in Bosnia, that order didn't survive, or used to be. They were the first to bring Islam to Bosnia, Mevlevi sheikhs. And Mevlevi Tekja was established in Sarajevo before Bosnia was occupied by Ottomans, which means that Mevlevi's Sufi sheikhs came before Sultan Mehmed Fatih. But unfortunately today we don't have the presence of, there is one Tekja, but it doesn't function as a place where dervishes come and do tazkiyah. It's rather a place of fikr, not zikr. So that tradition, we want that tradition to be accepted in America. We want to start that tradition of celebrating the death anniversary of Rumi, because he is so well known in the West because of his poetry. But Muslims even don't know anything about him, and Muslims are not even aware that he is big, that he is great. So we have to remind them, to teach them, Muslims, who Rumi was, who is Rumi. So there are Sufi, so I'm answering to your, because of Rumi. We need to know that Rumi is a Muslim, because many Americans think that he is not Muslim, because it is not in the interest of the publisher of his poetry to recognize him as Muslim. They are just publishing for the sake of profit, saying he is mystic, Middle Eastern mystic, Iranian mystic, or something like that. But he was great Sufi alim and sheikh and master.
Do you have any other question, Alavi?
Thank you, Imam Senad. You brought important discussion to our attention because you are here more than many of us here in the States and you have been observing many different Muslim populations. I felt like you resembled Hizmet as an organism and you kind of said you could be proud of it. At the same time, I heard you saying that this unity of Muslims in, let's say, in Chicago could be solved by making them become an organism through Sufism. Is that what you're proposing here, or is this an hypothesis? Where do you feel yourself? Can this happen?
Yeah, it might be. That's why I ask you at the end of my lecture. Do you agree with me? Is this too pretentious to propose such an idea that through Sufism we change Muslims and we make unite Muslims? It may not be possible. But I think it's time for us to speak about the Tasawwuf louder. Not to be shy, not to apologize for belonging to such tradition. Now whether Sufism can do that, if every Muslim would be open to receive it, to get it, to accept it, and to live it, to practice it, that would be ideal. Then we would be, by time we will become organism. But I don't know what is the alternative. What is the alternative movement? What is the alternative tradition that can help American Muslims to become organism?
If you are asking us,
Yeah.
what we believe, like Hoca Efendi is impacted by Sufism.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes.
We believe in ihsan, we believe
Yes.
in like love and devotion and everything.
Yes.
But at the same time, in our beliefs, we are trying to kind of merge our minds with hearts and with science. So that's our solution. So
Okay.
that's what keeps us here as a missionary people coming
Yes,
together
yes,
and doing
yes,
what you're
yes.
saying as an organism, trying to do
Right,
in
right.
many like,
Yeah.
countries in the world.
I'm going to interrupt you. How is Hizmet different than Sufism, in your view? Because you're.
I
the way you
can't
explain-
answer that question.
Yeah.
That's a bigger question to ask to some like.
I think it's modern
Ali, I'm
Sufism.
not Ali, but.
So modern Sufism. Even let's say there was no name of the Sufism at that time, maybe.
Right.
Islam came from the Caucasian region to the Turkey, to Anatolia, then went to the Balkania,
Mhm.
Bosnia and other
Mhm,
countries
mhm.
with the spirit of the meaning of the Sufism. But at that time, maybe there were no name.
It was Ilmul Ihsan.
Like
Ihsan.
Ilm al
It
Ihsan,
was
yeah,
known
that's
as
like
Ilmul
Ilmul
Ihsan.
That's why so Sufism means if meaning of the like core meaning of the Ihsan. So
Yes.
still continue in a like what Dr. Mustafa said as a like modern Sufism. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just connect a little bit with these questions. I think like since we're coming from Turkey, there's some history behind like how Sufism is perceived. Especially I think the orders in Turkey, they went into this the first part we described like maybe becoming more structured bureaucracy and like there were some drawbacks with that, so there are some negative connotations coming from that historical perspective. I think like what Hoca Efendi and also before that Said Nursi tried to do was like to maybe try to resolve those negative issues, like getting the spirit of what is Sufism is teaching us and teach it again with a new language, like to Turkish people. Like that's what we are seeing in general. Now, my question is there a way to, like, and also, like, I see that from other Muslim communities in the United States also, like you mentioned Islam, for example, being a little bit, not close.
Reserved.
I even encountered with a, prominent figure calling, like, tariqas as, like, viruses in Muslim mind. So, like, it is not, so, I think so. Like, again, like I wouldn't like agree with him obviously, but he has some reasons, basically, like some negative things that he saw maybe in his community or earlier. I don't know, but how can we try to find a new language, like as you are suggesting, like for American Muslims? Because when we say American Muslims, again, like we are just bringing our baggages to this country, but our kids are growing here as a new generation. Like, how can they find a new language from this?
Now I have to call on someone who is above me in knowledge of tasawwuf and knowledge of how American Muslim community functions. Professor Inam Haq, who teaches Islam at Elmhurst University, who has been in America maybe longer than me, who knows about tasawwuf probably more than me. Would you please, Inam, share with us what you think about this idea, and how would you respond to this brother about the terminology? Looks like terminology is not so attractive, is not popular among Muslims. So how would you approach, how can we revive Ilm al-Ihsan?
Thank you for your generosity. I'm really not that good, because in Tasawwuf what counts is not knowledge. What counts is what Sheikh Imam Senad has, the virtue and the inner purification of self. The problem with Sufism is that in recent history, if you go to Islamic history, the 1200 years of Islam, Sufism is very integral and core of Islam, anywhere in the world for past 1200 years. But when you enter the modern age, you see this Sufism comes under attack. It comes under attack from within, like Wahhabism. Okay? The interpretations of Islam which turned against Sufism as a superstition, as a deviation from the norm, as kind of foreign element which is introduced in Islam. So we have this attack on Sufism coming from within Islam. Then we have attack which is coming from external and foreign sources, like modernism, scientific rationalist thinking. So it's interesting that in 1920s and 30s, Kemal Ataturk is destroying Sufism in Turkey. Sufi takas, he's eliminating them on the ground that they are superstitious and they are a barrier in creating a modern scientific man, which future Turks need to be. And the same thing Saudis are doing in Saudi Arabia, that they are destroying the tombs of Sufi sheikhs and Sufi imams on the ground that they are mushrik and they are not true Muslims, and it is a deviation from Islam. So you have this dual attack, one coming from within and one coming from outer and external sources. And that has enormously weakened Sufism in past century. But the good thing is that at this particular moment, we are also witnessing the revival of Sufism. When I was young, 40 years ago, Sufism was virtually rejected by the younger generation.
By the way, we have many projects, you are still young.
Yes. Okay. May your prayer be accepted. So it was not. I remember about 35 years ago in ISNA convention, they have this huge bazaar. And there was a bookstore, and somebody just rented, and he did not tell them that what is the bookstore. And the bookstore was actually had a lot of Sufi books. And they literally damaged and asked him to remove it. They shut it down. You couldn't sell a Sufi book in Islam convention. This I saw with my own eyes.
What year was this?
At least 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Now if you go to Isna bookstore, you will hardly find any bookstore which is not selling some Sufi books. They may not say that, but you will see now they have books on Ghazali, they have books on Rumi, they have books on Ibn Ata'Allah Iskandari, the books about Imam Shazali. You will see the books on all, if you look what they have, you will see that 10, 20, 30% books are there actually Sufi books now. And just the sheer amount of books which are being published on Islam, and where is Dr. Kaya? Is he left? He knows on academia and on university publishing. A lot of work which is actually coming out is on Sufism. Okay? Now why it is happening? Why we are trying to come back to Sufism? One is that the modernity did not answer the question which historical religion was answering. So this faith that science will answer all our questions is now dying. And people are looking that maybe the perennial questions, the eternal questions, they are rooted in tradition, and we need to discover the tradition. Okay? So it is happening across the board, not only in Muslim society, but in mainstream American media. In the Muslim world, we can see that this revolt against Sufism and Islamic spirituality led us to what kind of Islam? What kind of Islam we created? A soulless, violent, intolerant, mutually divisive, continuously bickering and fighting. Islam is not at peace with itself, it's not at peace with neighbors. So within Muslim society is also this realization that this political Islam agenda is really failing, and it is not delivering anything except it is adding to Muslim suffering and Muslim misery and Muslim defeat. Okay? So I would say that at this particular moment, there is in fact a lot of opportunity and lot of need for the revival of Sufism, in not only here in the United States, but all over, but particularly in the United States, because being in the middle of a very materialistic, consumerist culture, the spiritual needs are growing. Okay? But one of the greatest problems of Sufism is that Sufism does not rest on books. It rests on human beings. Okay? The human beings, who have gone through the process of this purification, and they can guide a young person. You know, one of the famous Sufi scholars, Sayyid Hussain Nasr, he says, Sufism is like mountain climbing, and you cannot climb the mountain unless you have a guide who has already climbed it, and he knows all the pitfalls, where you can fall, where you can die. And we really have an extreme shortage of those masters, those teachers. We have a lot of people who have degrees in Islam, they can speak, lecture, they can yell, scream, but we really do not have those kind of teachers. That is really the crux of the problem. I wish Chicago had more imams like Imam Senad. People should feel I teach a course on Sufism, and I always bring my student to his zikr session, and I ask them they should write their impressions. What did they see? And it's just beautiful what they experience. Everybody loves it. Okay? So this is an experience which touches their heart. When I ask them go to a mosque and witness Jummah, a lot of time they come back very unhappy and angry because the whole atmosphere, they felt they were mistreated, nobody cared. Imam was stupid, he was just yelling and screaming without any clear message. Okay? Now, while in the zikr of Imam Sanad, nobody is speaking. He's not giving any lecture. Maybe he will talk 2 minutes. Rest of the time he is just doing zikr, which is in Arabic, and they don't even understand what is being recited. But even that has such a positive impact on them versus this empty talk which we have going on in our mosques and communities. So I think that at this moment we shouldn't lose hope. It is really the moment in which Sufism is coming back. That tide that was dying is, in my opinion, over. And inshallah it will come back. Okay, thank you.